Hello, beauty lovers and others, and welcome back to Contour and Candor. I am feeling better than I was yesterday, so that's a very good thing. I took NyQuil last night for the first time in a very long time, and it turns out that I no longer need to take two capsules, because it knocked me out. I had to get up with the dog at 6 something, and I felt like a zombie. Yeah, so luckily I did get to go back to sleep. But okay, today is a good day because we're going to do a no makeup look. So this is what I do when I don't want to look like I'm really wearing a ton of makeup, but I want to cover all of this up. So let's go ahead and get started. And I thought a topic for today would be, that might be fun, is podcasts. So I listen to a ton of audiobooks. I am sort of obsessed. So I haven't been listening to podcasts for very long. But I have found my absolute favorites. So we'll start with the ones that are for everybody. So there is this woman, her name is Sherry Keel, and it's spelled, I think, Keuhl, something like that. Sherry Keel. But you will know her by her podcast name, or come to know her by her podcast name, Snarky in the Suburbs. And Sherry is a former journalist, and she is the author of some pretty hysterical fiction books. I love her, but her podcast, it's so much fun. You can get it on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, but you can also listen on her YouTube channel, Snarky in the Suburbs podcast. She also has Snarky in the Suburbs, but the podcast channels where you'll find, obviously, the podcast. She is so funny. She is a 60-something-year-old woman. She looks great. But Sherry talks about, she gets letters from listeners who asked her advice. She's sort of like a Dear Abby type, but hysterically funny. So somebody wrote a review that said if Irma Bombeck and Dear Abby had a baby. So sort of like that. I would say like if Fanny Flagg and Dear Abby had a baby. If you know, you know. All right, so people ask her questions all the time about family dramas, PTA dramas, but it's amazing how many people ask Sherry about weddings, wedding dramas. And I have a particular interest in wedding dramas. I've always loved everything wedding. I really have, which is ironic because I've never been married, but I have been a bridesmaid 9 times. So, yeah, there's that. I've also been helping my sister and niece who are wedding florists for a couple of years, and I have even been a wedding coordinator for one of my best friends for her daughter's wedding, which was beautiful. Anyway, so there are so many people for whom weddings just bring up insanity. I should tell you, so I did my usual Ola Hendrickson and the world's best concealer, Natasha Denona High Glam. Yeah, but people write, I mean, some people, you just go, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So this week, a woman wrote, she's the mother of the groom, and her future daughter-in-law invited her to the to her wedding dress appointment. to go shopping. And she was so honored and so excited about it. And I will tell you, my oldest sister is the mother of a groom coming up in October. And I know how much it meant to her when her future daughter-in-law invited her to go dress shopping with her. However, unlike my sister's situation, this is just crazy. So this woman writes that she found out after the appointment that wasn't the bride's real appointment. What? You tried on dresses. You were there. Your mother was there. A couple of your bridesmaids were there. How is this not the real appointment, right? Well, apparently this woman didn't want to hurt her future mother-in-law's feelings. So she created this elaborate hoax where she went to a dress shop that she knew she would never buy from for whatever reason. I think she's a snob personally, from what I could ascertain, that it wasn't highbrow enough for her that she would ever get her wedding dress there. But so she staged this appointment, not just wasting her future mother-in-law's time and hurting her feelings, but also wasting the time of all of the women who work in the bridal shop she would never buy from. Okay, but I guess somebody who was either there or who was related to somebody there, one of the bridesmaids, was like, this is not cool. This is just not okay that you're doing this. So told the mother of the groom, yeah, I just want you to know that wasn't real. She's getting her wedding dress somewhere else. Okay. And she only did it because she knew you wanted to go and didn't want to hurt your feelings, but doesn't want you at her real wedding dress appointment. Okay. So yeah, the woman was understandably hurt and perplexed, and also wondering, what does this say about this future daughter-in-law, that she would do something this elaborate and deceptive, like craziness. Anyway, so the woman was writing Sherry and asking, Dear Snarky, what do I do? And by the way, kudos to this woman's son, the groom, who said, yeah, that's not cool. So, now there's issues with his fiance, and I don't know. So, but anyway, so we as the audience for Dear Snarky Podcast, we get to put our suggestions of a response in the comment section, particularly if you watch on YouTube, which I try to do. So that's just one example. I mean, how about this one? Okay, I know I shouldn't get into it, but honestly, I could talk about this forever. So this woman has, she marries a guy, and apparently he's between jobs, which is fine. I cannot throw stones in that area right now. So they get married, and they've been married a couple of months. She owns her own home, which he moves into, but it's her home. And she has a ADU, which stands for something dwelling unit, additional dwelling unit on the property, which are legal in some states. And so it's meant to be an income generator. So the groom's parents come for a visit, and while they're visiting, I think it's the father has a health crisis. So of course the letter writer, who is the wife of the son, the daughter-in-law, she's like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Come, stay where you are here with us in the ADU. And get some treatment, while you're here. Well, so this starts going on. Now, these people have been married like 3 to 6 months at this point. So they're definitely newlyweds. And so he gets treatment, gets out. Well, the mother of the husband, or the wife of the guy who just got treatment, we'll call him the father-in-law and the mother-in-law. So the mother-in-law says, "Oh, we can't move him yet. He's not ready to be moved." So this woman is like, "Okay." The daughter-in-law, she says, "Okay, well, we don't want to jeopardize his health, so stay until he's able to fly." Okay, well, this drags on and on and on. And she's like, "What the heck is going on? He seems pretty good to me right now." And so she brings it up to her husband and says, "Hey, your parents have been here a very long time. Can you talk to them and figure out what their plans are? Because I'm kind of ready for us as newlyweds to have our life to ourselves again." So he talks, allegedly, to his parents, and they say, "Oh, well, since it was taking so long for him to recover, we rented out our house, and we can't go back right now." Oh my word! What would you do? So this woman is obviously totally flabbergasted. Her husband's saying, "What's the big deal? It's my parents." Well, the big deal is we've been married like 3 months, and you are taking advantage. This is crazy. And for them to do that is so shady. Okay, back to what I did. You know what I did. I used the e.l.f. Contour. Love it. The wand. And now, okay, so thing to note about this makeup is there's no foundation. I just used the concealer, which is a good way for a no makeup day to kind of get a more, less full coverage in your face makeup-y look. Because I was talking and all excited, I probably did my brows a little heavier than I would normally do for a no makeup day. So let me just go over them with a Kleenex, lighten them up. Okay. Yeah, just sort of feather it out a little bit. So this woman who wrote, back to the story, this woman who wrote says, "What do I do? What do I do? Because they're getting mail at my house now, so they've established residency here. I don't know what to do." So the next is so good. So this woman, Sherry gives her really good advice. She's like, "Okay, they have to go somewhere eventually, right? Like visiting someone." Well, it turns out that their daughter was having a baby, and they wanted to go and visit and be with the daughter. This is the opportunity. And their son, this woman who's writing's husband, is going to go with them. So this woman, she doesn't just change the locks, which would have been one option, and remove their stuff and put it in storage and say, "Here's the key to storage. Go have a nice life." No. She lists the house for sale. And again, she is the sole owner of this property. So she lists it for sale, and she sells her house while they're gone. They're going for a month, which I don't get that, husband. Hello. If you're between jobs, shouldn't you be at home looking for a job? Whatever. But he does. He leaves too. And so this woman sells the house while they're gone. And sadly, but predictably, files for divorce. Yeah. So by the time the parents and her, what I will now call deadbeat husband, by the time they get back, the house is sold. She has contacted them through her attorney to say, the few possessions that you left at my house are in such and such a place. You can pick them up there, and serves her husband with divorce papers. Yeah. So that is just an example of the kind of stories that are on this podcast. It is so good. It is my favorite podcast ever. So yeah, I would highly recommend that. Okay. The next podcast. Oh, before I do that, I will tell you. So what I'm doing now is a technique called tight lining. So I'm not putting the liner above the lash line. I'm putting it below the lash line. I'm lifting the lid and just getting in there with my waterproof. This is Urban Decay in the shade Whiskey. So you don't want anything sparkly if you're going underneath. Please don't do that. But this is a way to bring thickness to your lash line. I'm going to look in this mirror. Sorry. Yeah, and you just, touch it in there. And sorry for the view. Okay. And it's just a good way to keep it subtle and but still add some definition. I love that technique. Okay, so the next podcast I want to recommend is Laugh Lines by Penn and Kim Holderness. You may know the Holdernesses from, they started their YouTube channel. I know Kim is a former journalist. Not sure what Penn's background is. He's a beautiful musician, though, composer, singer, musician, incredible. But you might know them, they did a thing about family pajamas with their two then young children, no longer young, that kind of blew up on the internet about, 12 years ago or something. And it was so funny. And that kind of led them to start doing more on YouTube. And so Penn has ADHD, and he and Kim wrote a book about that. Then it turned out that Kim also has ADHD, but she didn't get diagnosed till she's 50. Whole story there, but very interesting. Anyway, they won The Amazing Race a couple of years ago. Incredible. But so they have this talk show format, podcast, and it's good. It's really good. So that would be another thing. They talk about a lot of things. Penn has Alzheimer's on both sides of his family, his mother and his father. His father's passed away. His mother is end-stage Alzheimer's right now. So they talk a lot about brain health and keeping your mind and your body healthy. They are now parents of a college student and a high schooler, and they talk a lot about, just the challenges of the change of life, they talk about the change of life because Kim's in the middle of it, but they also talk about how life changes, as your children age. And though my children are all nieces and nephews, it's still very interesting and informative, but also lots of laughs. They're so funny, and they have good guests on. So that is another one I would recommend. Again, they're on YouTube as well as all your podcast channels. Providers. Holderness, it's called Laugh Lines with Penn and Kim Holderness, or Kim and Penn Holderness. So that's a good one. If you are an Office lover, as I am, the show The Office, there is a podcast called Office Ladies Podcast with Jenna Fisher and Angela Kinsey. And that would be one. Start at the beginning, because they're finished with this format and doing other things now, but they did episode by episode of their podcast. Office episode by office episode was their focus of their podcast for many years, and it was fantastic. They had pretty much the entire cast and production crew on at some point. And if you love that show the way I love that show, it is very fun to kind of know what was going on behind the scenes as they're filming each episode and all kinds of things like that. So that is one I would also highly recommend. Okay, tell you things that I've done. Okay, we did the blush. Now, for your lips, you want to go as close to your lip color as possible on a no makeup day. And that's what I tried to do here with my Trish nude liner. And then just throw a gloss on top. This is the Revie Beauty. This is a clear gloss that looks pink because I put lipstick, lip liner on and shove it back in. So it pinks it up a little, but it's a clear gloss. Okay. Now, the only thing left to do, I'm going to do a little eyeshadow. I'm going to show you sneaky eyeshadow. All right, let's see if I can find the right color. I know I found it, and now I seem to have put it away while talking. So see if I can find it again. There it is. Okay. So this is from It Cosmetics. It's called Superhero No Tug Shadow Stick. And this is in the shade Bare and Brave. Okay, so bare it being the key word here. I just want to give a little dimension to my eye without looking like I'm wearing a ton of eyeshadow. So you go with something that's kind of fairly nude in tone, but it does make a difference. All right, so there we go. And over here, I go across. If you wonder why, because they show you, if you are old school makeup, they've always shown you to do the kind of rainbow shape, arch shape. But as you age, going out makes so much more sense because it keeps your eye lifted. Lifted. I have to check my blend too. Yep, that's good. Actually, since I skipped nose liner, and this is pretty much the same shade as a contour, I'm going to contour my nose with my eyeshadow. Did you know you could do that? You can. Okay. Pat, pat, pat. Yeah. Not bad. It would help if I didn't have so much other stuff on my fingers right now, probably. Sorry, I'm just trying to make them even. Come on. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to take a little bit and cheat it under my eye, just to give it, open up my eyes a little bit. Key to this technique is the shade that you're using for no makeup. All right. Now, we can't forget mascara, especially when you have invisible lashes, as I do. And I am sorry. I know my voice is sounding terrible, but I'm getting over being sick, so I hope you'll show me some grace. Okay. Curl those lashes. So my final podcast recommendations are for people who want to grow in their faith. The first is the Bible recap, and that walks you through the Bible in a year. And it doesn't just do it by like Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, Genesis chapter 2, 1, verse 2, etc. It does it by time. So if there are things in Psalms that are written at the same time as another book of scripture, they'll go by time and not just by book, which I think is very interesting and helps you kind of stay engaged with what's happening when in the scripture. And I've loved doing this. We're a little more than halfway through this year. If you start in the middle of the year, start back at Genesis 1:1, at episode 1, I should say, because it's helpful to have the flow of time and history. Sorry, mascara, but that is definitely one. And then I'm a big fan. People say different things about her. I get it. I think when she was newer in her ministry, I think she's grown in her ministry, in her theology, in her study, and that is Joyce Meyer. So there's a podcast called 15 Minutes in the Word with Joyce. No, it's called Enjoying Everyday Life. Enjoying Everyday Life, 15 Minutes in the Word with Joyce Meyer. That's been really valuable to me. Joyce is the most practical Bible teacher. And the thing that I love about Joyce is she's just completely authentic. And she's been through it. So her story is amazing, having been abused as a child by her father in the worst possible way. And not just once, but for most of her life after, toddlerhood, till the time she left her home. And she grew bitter and resentful, as one might who has experienced something that terrible and traumatic. And just how God has healed her, worked in her life, helped her see herself as God sees her, not just through the lens of her abuse and trauma, given her a spirit of love and forgiveness. And she has said things in her messages. One, I think it was in a book I was reading of hers, back in the days of books on tape. There was, I can vividly remember being in the car on my way to a therapy appointment, of all things, and listening to one of her books, and she said a sentence that has changed my life. And I believe it, anyway, I'll not get into that, but this is what she said. She said, "You can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you cannot be both." And if you think about that, you can be pitiful or you can be powerful, but you cannot be both. So yes, bad things happen to us, and we can stay in self-pity, or we can move past it with God's help, and we can forgive even if the person is not repentant. We do it for ourselves, and to be closer in our relationship with God. And it's not negating what happened, and it's not excusing what happened, but it's saying it will not define me. I will not live in that pain. I will live beyond that pain, and I will move into a better future, in as much as it's in my control, and allowing God to do his work in me. So I have never experienced, thank God, what Joyce has lived through. So I look at someone like her and I think, if she can overcome the most horrific thing I can imagine, the person who is one of two people in your life, your parents, who I should be able to trust implicitly, and for one of those people to violate you so badly, and the other to know what's going on and not have the courage to get you out of that situation. And if she can forgive that, if she can move past that and not be defined by it, there is nothing in my life that I cannot overcome. So yeah, that's Again, Enjoying Everyday Life with Joyce Meyer. That is my final podcast recommendation. Okay, back to the makeup. So yes, I look like I have makeup on. I know. I can be a little heavy-handed with my blush. That's why a Kleenex is your best friend. There you go. You don't want to put too much mascara on, but not putting that top liner on top of your lash line really is the key to this look, I think. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you try a no makeup kind of look and how it works for you. Golly, I've got a blend. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today, and God bless y'all, and I will see you soon. Bye.